Hey everyone, it's Brian Kaz here, joined by my friend and business partner, Sean Casey. We have another Wednesday marketing webinar for you today. And on this one, we thought we'd do basically an extended Q&A. So usually we have only like a brief time at the very end of calls for basically Q&A. So we thought we'd turn this call basically into a giant one, and we emailed you guys recently basically asking you to send in your questions and stuff. And we got a bunch of questions, and we basically compiled, all those questions on this, on these slides right here. Now, a handful of questions were very similar, so we kind of combined a few into a one, so we wouldn't have to answer like almost the exact same then three or four times over. So we should have the questions and stuff all there. If by chance you don't see yours, or you send yours in late, or if you have a new question that just popped up, you can also feel free to ask that in the chat, and we'll be happy to try to answer as many of those as we can. So Sean and Sharon will be helping out on the chat, and then towards the end of the call, we'll basically take any other additional questions and stuff that you guys have in the chat, so feel free to mention that. So with that, we can get the show on the road. So once again, this will be the extended Q&A call. And again, these calls are every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, which is right about now. And we'll do either a live training and/or Q&A call for our members. Most of them are usually with us. Occasionally, we'll have a special guest. So if there's any topics or anything like that that you'd like to have some further training on, feel free to let us know. Now, if you're here or you're registered for the series, you'll get a reminder each week, so you don't forget. But if you can't make one, again, we'll have the recordings in the members area within a day of any of the calls under the training tab on the left side navigation bar. And as always, every Wednesday, we give people a chance to win $100 today. And that will be towards the very end of our call. You'll have a chance to win the 100, but to do that, you have to join this free Facebook group right here, which you can get to at getwebfire.com/FB group. I know most of you are already signed up. If there's a handful of new people, feel free to go to that link right now, click the join button. Sharon will approve of you usually within like a minute or two, and then towards the end of this call, we'll give you instructions on how you can win $100 today, and we'll actually PayPal that over at the end of this call. So we'll actually pick the winner in front of you, and yeah, good times. So now let's move on to our training for this week on our Q&A call. So we sent an email recently asking you to submit any questions you had in. So we'll be answering those questions now. And again, several of these were combined into one, or kind of, paraphrased a bit. But again, you can feel free to ask new ones as well, just in the chat. So the first question that I wrote down here is well, this was actually a couple of guys that asked a question like this, is how should I market to the B2B market? Now, B2B, for those that don't know, is business to business. So if you're selling like a service to, let's say, dentists or chiropractors or something like that, you would be in the B2B market. So you'd be looking to market to other businesses. If you're looking to sell, let's say, a random toy, or a random gadget, you'd probably be in the B2C market, which is business to consumer, which is where you're selling to basically, like a general consumer, not necessarily a person that owns a business. And as far as how we think you should market to another business, there's a few different ways. First, the first tip is you want to make sure that you sell, like, let's say you're selling a service or even a product. You want to make sure that it's very specific to them. The more specific you can get, the more likely you are to make that sale. For instance, if you're selling, an SEO service to dentists, you can get by selling a general SEO service and maybe get some sales from like random dentists that see the value in what you're basically selling. But if you say you have basically an SEO service specific to dentists, and the examples you give are based upon basically dental sites or anything like that, you're far more likely to land those sales. And the reason is, it's just the mindset of people. And everyone is basically guilty of this. Like, regardless of what you sell. And we actually get this question a lot. So I'll give like a basic tip on how to rank like a blog post, and or how to do like a landing page or anything like that. Every time I give tips like that, there's always at least like a half a dozen people on these calls that say, okay, that's great, but what if I sell this, or what if I sell that, or what if I sell, baskets, or what if I sell knitting patterns, or what if I sell a service on this or that? And they think that, that their service or their product is basically different, when really the same tips apply to basically almost everyone. But it's the mindset. So like if you're selling, like let's say, you're a dentist, would you rather go to a random SEO service, even though if it looks really good and the examples that they gave are really good, or would you rather go to a service that specifically only talks about dentists and how they can help? I mean, the majority of dentists would tend to go with basically the dental one. Now, I'm not saying that you have to go and create like a million different versions, of any offer, or any product. But if your goal is to sell, let's say, an SEO service, you could create a slightly tweaked pitch that is basically modified to fit only dentists. Like maybe on the examples that you give, you show why some dentist sites rank and why some don't. It doesn't have to be that much different of an actual pitch or an actual demo or anything like that, but you can modify almost any pitch within an hour or less pretty easily, and start with maybe like one or two and see how that basically goes there. And what you'll find is if you do it right and if you target those guys right, you can do really well. Now, the other thing that you can do too, any business out there tends to have the business owners looking for specific questions, regardless of what issue they might have. So let's say, again, using SEO as an example, you could target questions that people have, and this wouldn't be just for dentists. This could be for almost anyone. Like a question might be, how to rank my website in Google, or how to edit a title tag, or how to do this or that, or any kind of technical question that you can solve. If you write like a blog post or do like a video where you basically target the question as the title of your blog post or the title of your video, and you give a short, precise answer, that can drive a lot of traffic. And then after you give that answer, of course, you can briefly market whatever service or offer you might have right there. And if you brainstorm even like a dozen questions, you can get a question and an answer written for each one. I'd say a dozen you could easily get through in 1 hour, maybe 2 if you're super slow. But again, very, very quickly, because it's not that hard to basically come up with a question and have a short answer. And if you don't know that answer, you can quickly Google it, and you tend to find it pretty quickly. And the cool part with that is not a lot of people tend to target actual questions, yet someone looking for an actual question is more likely to be kind of in the mood to actually possibly need a service or possibly even buy a service at that same time. The other thing that you want to keep in mind when it comes to actually trying to target especially a business market is you'll want, like, whether you're trying to target people with on Facebook ads, or whether you're trying to target them organically, you want to make sure that you try to pinpoint those people as much as possible. For instance, if you're doing Facebook ads, you don't just want to, like, let's say you're trying to market to dentists. You don't just want to target people who like a dentist, because even though I'm sure there's not necessarily a ton of people that like dentists in real life, there's a lot of people on Facebook and stuff that will claim that they like basically a dentist or some word related to dentists, and they're not necessarily a dentist themselves. In fact, probably the vast majority of them are not. Instead, you could look for maybe people that belong to a dental association, or that like a dental association, or like a membership or something like that, where it's less likely that a random consumer would be into that. So you can basically pinpoint those much better. And on the online side, again, if you do even like a quick Google search, you can find tons of businesses, in your local area, and take a little time, go through those sites one by one, and reach out to them. Or you can use a tool like inside of WebFire. We have under the competition tab, we have a tool that's just you click on competition, then you click on the backlink tool, and you can type in a term like dentist, Atlanta, Georgia. And it would list off, the top 10 sites that rank there, and you can quickly reach out to those guys with a click of a button over email, and you have some prospects that you can get that way as well. We also have an additional tool called Lead Nova, where you could find hundreds of leads in any local area for almost any kind of business term out there. If that's of interest to you, Sharon can post a link up in the chat box for that. That's a pretty cool way to get a bunch of email leads and also phone leads, and the actual physical addresses and all sorts of stuff like that. So if that's of interest to you, she can post up that, and you can check out that when you get the time right there. And you also want to look at, depending upon the market that you're trying to go into, you can look at and see who the top influencers might be. Like, for instance, using the dentist example, there might be like a dental association or like a blog associated with that. And usually most niches or groups out there tend to have a handful of kind of authority type sites or groups, and you can find those, reach out to them, and just basically ask them, saying, hey, I have an SEO service or whatever you have. It doesn't have to be SEO. That's just an easy example. And write up an article about how any dentist can easily rank, or what they have to do, or why they don't rank, and just see if they'd be willing to possibly post that for you. Or you can even inquire if they have any kind of ads and such that you can buy, because oftentimes they actually do sell ads, and it can be very cheaply compared to essentially going right elsewhere, because they don't get a lot of people taking the time to really reach out there and look there. So that's what I would do to basically start with, but especially trying to make a service specific for whatever business type you're trying to basically target. And again, in the pitch that you make, you want to specifically address what their issue probably is, what they could be doing wrong, why some fail, why some do great, and how they could possibly tweak their site or whatever it is to be essentially better. Like, an easy way to do a quick pitch for basically the dentist example is, you could do basically a screen share where basically the video is, hey, I just want to show why some dental sites in Madison, Wisconsin rank and why some don't. And you go through basically a Google search, and you talk into your screen as you record yourself, and you basically say, hey, look, if we look here, the place that's ranked at the very top here, they seem to rank at 1 and 2 because they use this search phrase in their title tag, whereas this guy at the bottom and this guy at page 2 does not, because they don't seem to mention that here or here. And just give like a few easy tips like that, and then say, now these are just a handful of super easy tips. And there's dozens of other factors as well. So you can feel free to make basically the changes that I just mentioned, and see your own sites in improving rankings. Or if you need help, feel free to reach out to me right here. You can shoot a pitch like that in 5 minutes or less, and you're providing value to all those prospects that you reach out to. And if your message and your actual offer is good, you can get a lot of results, or at least a lot of feedback off that right there, and kind of basically tweak your pitch or your message from there. So another question we got is, how can I track sales if selling on Amazon to see the result?
Hey, Brian, before you start that, right while you're in that last thing, Francis was asking, what other WebFire tool did you mention along with the competition tab? Or was that when you were talking about lead power machine?
Yes, so I mentioned inside of WebFire under the competition tab, you'd click on where it says backlink, but I also mentioned for a business-to-business lead tool, we have another separate tool outside of WebFire called Lead Nova, which Sharon can
Which is
post
now
a.
morphed into Lead Power Machine. So don't confuse people
Oh
even
yes,
more.
sorry.
That's a problem when you've created
Yeah.
so much software,
Yeah.
I know.
We actually.
Okay.
Yeah, we actually made an updated version of that called Lead Power Machine. I was actually mentioning the prior version by accident right there. So we have
Right.
a new
Right,
version.
but if you want to buy the old one besides the new one, we'll sell that to you.
You'd want the newer one. It actually does a lot.
And then Christian was just asking what's a Google search title tag. So if you can explain that real quick and then move on.
Sure. So a title tag, in fact, if you watch any of our prior trainings that talk about SEO, we basically talk about things like a title tag, and basically to give like the short 30-second answer, if you do a search on Google for basically anything, you see a lot of links that show up in blue. The words within those links, the vast majority of the time, are what's called a title tag, oftentimes if you have like a blog post, if you set the blog up right, if you use the WebFire plugin and stuff, the title of your blog post will also be the title tag. It's basically just a name for any given web page on your site. And the keywords that you have within the title tag tend to help a great deal in terms of ranking. So if you target a keyword that isn't insanely competitive and you put in your title tag, you have a very good chance of ranking on page 1 for that right there. And if you want more tips and stuff related to SEO, or if you're not quite sure what that is, just watch any of the prior calls on SEO, or just use the website analysis tool inside of WebFire. It will tell you all that stuff, and you can easily change your title tags and all that right there. So it makes it super, super easy for you. All right, so next question we got is, how can I track sales if selling on Amazon to see the results of my marketing? So this is a problem that oftentimes pops up to those that don't sell on their own site. So obviously if you sell on your own site, it's a lot easier to track stuff because you can use, there's lots of tracking software and stuff like that, and you can see where sales came from, what ads are working, or what methods are working, like if there's certain articles or videos. You can easily track where your sales are coming from. But if you're selling on Amazon, a lot of times people are like, crap, because it's not your site, you obviously can't place any like tracking codes or cookies or pixels on there, so it's harder to basically track that. But there is kind of a fairly easy workaround to help track the results on Amazon. And that is, if you're a vendor on Amazon, or if you're selling on Amazon, you're allowed to create your own Amazon coupons. So what you can do is, on anything that you do, whether it be a blog post, whether it be a video, an article, or anything like that, at the end of it, when you give them a link to your Amazon listing, you can also mention a coupon code on it. When say, hey, do this to save X% or X amount of dollars, and it doesn't necessarily have to even be a ton. It's just something. And you know that when they use that code, then they had to have come from the specific source that gave that code out. So that gives you some kind of like rough basic tracking right there. So you can kind of see the basic results of, hey, was this article effective? Was this ad effective? Was this video effective? So on and so forth. And again, as a vendor inside of Amazon, you should see where you can create a coupon. If not, just do a quick search on Google for how to create a coupon on Amazon as a vendor, and you should easily see kind of a walkthrough on how to do all that right there. All right. Next question, we got a couple guys in general that asked a comparable question of how can I track results of marketing in general. So this wasn't just on Amazon, but outside of that. And there's a few different ways. One, you can use a variety of redirect links. Some web hosts actually allow you to have any domain name you want automatically be turned into like a forward or like a redirect. So you can basically Google your web host and see how they might handle that. There's also a variety of free and cheap redirect services out there. And if you do a search for free redirect service or anything like that, you'll find a bunch of options out there, and they allow you to basically track the amount of clicks and stuff that you send. So if you do like a video or a blog post, you can get a rough idea of the amount of clicks and stuff that you send. If you want to step it up a notch, there's also basically tracking programs out there that you can use as well. And obviously, if you advertise on Facebook or stuff like that, they have a pixel that you can add on sites and basically track where your sales came from on that end. And if you're just an affiliate, you can always get separate affiliate links, in a lot of cases, and use that to kind of track, which affiliate links seem to be making you the most sales and so forth. So, there's a variety of programs out there that can help with that, some free and some paid right there. So it's just basically a question of how much you want to basically do there. All right, we got a couple guys asking, what's the best way to make a good landing page, or what are some tips, to making a good one? And, basically they should generally, and now don't basically take this as, this is the rule and that's that, because, there's always exceptions in almost every case of anything. But as a whole, generally, we find that the simpler the landing page is, the higher the conversions are. So a lot of times people think that they have to make a big, elaborate, landing page with like, pages and pages and pages of content. And the problem is, like, a lot of people don't take the time to read all that, and you kind of scare off a lot of guys. So you tend to have very poor opt-in rates. Now, some might be slightly more qualified, but oftentimes you lose a lot of qualified people as well. So typically, you just want to have like a quick headline and maybe a few bullet points of benefits, and that's basically it. And then just have then usually, in most cases, you want to just ask for their email. In some cases, people ask for name and other info like that. But the more info you ask for, the less likely people are to actually give you all that, and the less likely are to convert that into a lead. So the easier you make it to sign up, the less info you ask for, the more likely you are to have a higher opt-in rate. That's why usually just asking for the email, is usually the best. Now, of course, there can be exceptions and reasons why you might not want to, but that works. And the ironic part is too, like, we find, we've basically split tested a lot of pages, and we've done like ones with like fancy graphics, longer text, shorter text, and all that. And some of our winners tended to be like pages that didn't look all that attractive. They looked like they were from like the 90s, and you'd see it and you'd think, oh my God, this looks like really bad and outdated, and blah blah blah. But stats don't lie, numbers don't lie, and basically the takeaway from that is the simpler your opt-in page is, the more precise it is, the more likely you are to get a higher opt-in rate. Now, as far as making it, there's a variety of tools out there. There's not a lot of like very good free ones out there that I've seen. There's a handful of paid, landing page makers. That's fine if you want to go that route. But for a quick start, if you just go to Fiverr.com, Fiverr.com, there's a lot of workers on there that for $5 or so, they can make a fairly quick and easy landing page. And just make sure that it's like mobile friendly and stuff like that. So you want to check that ahead of time, or ask them, ahead of time, because nowadays, like, more and more of the traffic is basically coming from the mobile side. So you want to make sure that looks nice not only on the desktop but also on the mobile side too. So just keep that in mind. But on Fiverr for $5 or so, you can't really even go wrong. There's lots of guys that for basically $25 or so will also make them. So my rule of thumb is if you're not really a tech person or a graphic person, and the thought of making a landing page really scares you, spend the $5 or so and just get one made, or get a few made, and go from there. And it's pretty easy for guys to change like a headline around. So if you have like a basic page and you want to test like a couple different headlines or a couple different bullet points or stuff like that, generally speaking, they could pretty easily whip up like 2 or 3 or 4 clones that are almost identical, but with like a slightly different headline and or look and such that you can use right there. So that's probably the easiest way to get going. And I find that oftentimes people try to like get basically stuck on the simplest and easiest of things. So again, I'd encourage you not to spend months and months and months trying to make a landing page when you can get that done for $5 or $10 in like a day's time by just outsourcing that. So next question is, what's the best way to start getting traffic? There's a handful of guys that asked a question kind of like that there. Now, first and foremost, you want to make sure you do keyword research and target those terms in your title tags, like we talked about. So if you're trying to rank, that's probably like the #1 most important thing in the majority of cases, is to target good, easier to rank for terms that are also, and also make sure that basically the title tag is not only SEO friendly, where you actually use the keyword, but make sure that the title is also, appealing. And we've talked about this on past calls. So it's a lot like, if your keyword phrase that you think is easy to rank for, like let's say it's puppy potty training, okay? If that's a good keyword and you sell a guide on how to basically potty train, your dog, instead of just having puppy potty training, as your title tag, which might be very SEO friendly, you could have it be, easy puppy potty training trick dash, a 5-minute method to train your, dog or puppy. That contains the key-keyword phrase that you're trying to rank for, but it also makes it have some additional terms that are far more appealing to get extra clicks and stuff on. And the more clicks you generally get from people that do a search, the higher Google basically pushes you up in the rankings and such. You can also target questions, as we said, with short answers. That's actually a great way to get like a lot of traffic, whether you're doing like blog posts or web pages or videos or anything like that. If you target like all the major questions that people have in almost any niche, and you'll find like there's a lot of questions that people ask or that they're trying to search for that there's really not an easy site or an easy answer to. So if you make it super easy and you target the question in your title tag or as the subject of your video, you can get a lot of traffic off those. And this is one where it won't necessarily be like tens of thousands of hits a month off of one post. I mean, it's possible in some terms, yeah, but it's the fact that if you answer like, let's say, a dozen questions in any market, and then over time you maybe add to that where it might be a couple dozen or a few dozen, over time they'll start to send in a lot of traffic, and it kind of makes you look like, hey, you're the authority in that market or on that topic, and they see the pitch that you have or whatever it might be. You also want to, last but not least, reach out to where your prospects already are with a no-brainer deal. So this can mean, whether you want to use like basically tools inside of WebFire like Tweet Lead Finder or Real-Time Lead Finder or Rank Lead Finder or anything like that. There's people out there asking questions right now on forums, blogs, so on and so forth, where they might be ready to basically buy. They're just not quite sure on maybe one or two things. Or they're not quite sure on which one they should buy or what exactly they need. And you can find these kinds of prospects every day asking these questions, reach out to them, help them basically answer, and then give them a no-brainer deal. Now, especially if it's not quite a buyer yet, you want to give them some kind of an appealing offer that gets them to take action and get some to either join your list or respond to you or whatever it might be. For instance, one of the first things I ever did online is I was an affiliate for several diamond sites. So instead of just like, now granted, if people asked a question, I would give useful tips and suggestions and stuff, which was all fine and dandy. But to have to really have an irresistible offer, I not only gave the tips and suggestions based upon what they were looking for, but I said, hey, if you tell me a bit more of what you're looking for, I'll check some of the main sites for you and pass on links to the top suggestions or deals that I find. So that's me basically offering a free service, which in their eyes is like a no-brainer deal. Like, why wouldn't you take a person up on that offer? But realistically, the products that I'd send the links to would also be ones that I would turn into my affiliate links. So I might make hundreds of dollars per sale off of that for basically doing this free service. And it's kind of one of those things where if you make an offer like that, there's not really a lot of people that say no, because there's no real downside to them. And you want to try to think, hey, what can you do? What can you give out? Whether it's information, whether it's a service or a product, what can you do that basically is the path of least resistance, and something that has immense value to them, where it'd be very hard for a person to say no. If you can brainstorm an offer like that, you can get a lot more results, build a lot more leads faster, and get a lot more sales much faster as well. So I would encourage you, as like maybe part of your homework is to maybe try to brainstorm, hey, what's an offer that you can do related to your niche, or related to niche that you want to be in, that you think would be very hard to say no to, that you could basically monetize the back end of and make more money basically behind the scenes of. All right, the next question that I got from, I think at least one, if not two, was how should I price my services or my product? And this is, I oftentimes see guys that try to be like the low price leader, and unless you're Walmart, that probably won't work out well. Unfortunately, people always see like places like Walmart and stuff will advertise how they have like the lowest price on this or that, so they have it like ingrained in their head that they have to sell basically the cheapest price possible. But in reality, that's basically the easiest path to lose big time. And that's because you don't just want to compare to others unless you're selling virtually the exact same physical product. So if you're selling, like I don't know, like a pair of Nike shoes, and it's the exact same shoe, the exact same brand, exact same size, exact same color, exact same everything. Okay, it's very hard for you to like basically price it at 10 times the price of the competition, or even like a few bucks more, unless you make it like super easy for them to basically get. It's very hard to compete on price with that. But in the majority of cases, you're not competing with the exact same product. So if you have, let's say, a product on weight loss, it doesn't matter that there's thousands and thousands and thousands of other weight loss products out there, because they're different, okay? So you want to basically, base the price on the value that you bring to them. So if you have, let's say, a weight loss guide that has some of the easiest tips to lose weight the fastest, losing a bunch of weight has value to people. Versus if there's a bunch of guides that aren't all that great, or don't have like these like secret tips or the proven tips, it doesn't matter if they're super cheap. Okay, people would rather pay more for something that's guaranteed to lose some weight than not. Or use an SEO as an example. If you're selling an SEO service, you can't usually charge the same price to a shoe repair store versus a plastic surgeon, and there's a few reasons. First, the plastic surgeon probably makes a lot more money, so he can probably afford a lot more. Whereas the shoe repair store might not make a ton. It might be a small mom and pop shop that might only make like several grand a month, if that. And they can't fork over like $1,000, because that would basically be a huge chunk of their profit. After they pay their rent and the cost of inventory and workers and all that, you can't basically take the entire business from them, and they need to repair a lot of shoes to make back $1,000. So you need to send them a ton of clients. Whereas on a plastic surgeon, one client could be worth many times the $1,000 fee. And the value that you basically bring is, hey, if they get one sale a month from the work that you've done, they're making a huge profit. They get one sale a year, they might be making a huge profit, off of your $1,000 a month price. So you want to base your price off of the value that you bring to them, not based upon the time that you take, or not based upon the price that others charge. You also want to make your offer more done for you, or done for them in this case. So the more hands-free that you make it, the more likely people are to pay you more. If you're selling an SEO service where someone has to do all the work and change a bunch of the crap themselves, that's worth a lot less to them. Whereas if you make it completely hands-free and you don't have to do squat, oftentimes people are willing to pay a lot more. And this is a mindset thing too, because oftentimes I find people that tend not to start out making a ton of dough, they tend to value their time less. Whereas the value of time to, let's say, a CEO or a guy that makes a lot of money, he values his time more. Like if there's a guy that makes $1 million a year, to him, he probably does not want to mow his own lawn, or he probably does not want to take the time to fix up his own site. So to him, his time is worth a lot more. So even if you charge significantly more than you might think, to him that might be an awesome deal, because he might make a lot more in that time saved than if he did that work himself. And this is true in almost all cases, and it's why there's a bunch of consultants out there that can get paid thousands and thousands of dollars even for fairly simple, easy things. And it's because people don't want to take the time to learn all this, especially those that own basically big businesses and stuff like that. They'd rather focus on what they're best at, which is their business. Also, another and when I say basically offer more done for you, that basically means, again, the more you can do for them in any way, the better. So again, if you're selling basically like an article or like a blog post, don't just write a post. Okay, you want to post it up for them. You want to optimize it for them. You want to do as much as you possibly can where they don't have to do any work, because in one case you might have a hard time selling a basic article for $10, but if you do all the work for them, or you even turn it into a website for them, which doesn't really take a lot of work, a 5-page site, which basically just be 5 blog posts, you can turn like a $50 product or service into like a $1,000 product or service with not that much more work, but the value of that is way, way, way more, so people are willing to pay more. Also, I find that the higher the price point you sell for, the easier it is to get faster results. Because if let's say you're trying to sell like a $1,000 a month service or a $1,000 product, if you get one sale after a while, you'll get excited about that. You'll say, wow, this really, really works. And all of a sudden you start to think, hey, if you get just a few or several sales, you can get a decent full-time income just off of that right there. Whereas if you're selling, let's say, a $7 product, or service, you need to make a lot of sales. And oftentimes it takes a lot more work to get the same amount of money. Especially if you're selling high price point stuff. Remember, the more value that you bring to the table, the more people are willing to pay. And again, I tend to find that usually in almost all cases it's easier to make more with the higher price points. And I've seen this even with a lot of very experienced marketers that I've dealt with. A lot of them tend to think that they can't charge too much because people won't buy, and in a lot of cases, almost every single time, those that raise their prices or charge more tend to make more money, period. It's just like a mental mindset. Then I encourage you guys to test it out. So the next question is, what's the fastest way for my current business to make more money? So there was a few questions kind of around this line right here. And one of the easiest ways, I think, is to add or basically increase to your upsells and downsells. I find that the vast majority of businesses, regardless if they're online or offline, especially on the offline side, but even on the online side too, oftentimes they don't have a single upsell. So they sell a front-end product and that's it. And you're leaving at a minimum, you're leaving about a third of your possible sales on the table. On the, on the upper end, you could possibly double your sales by just having a few minor tweaks. And that's without getting a single new client. So that's just making money off of your, existing list or your existing buyers. And the more, the higher the lifetime value you get out of your current guys, obviously the more money you make and the more time you can invest to acquire those sales, or the more money that you can put into ads or whatever it is you might be. You can also build up your back end more, and this is comparable to also basically putting like new offers and stuff together. I mean, if you have one offer right now, if you have a few more, not only can you have them as like upsells, you can have the other ones be other front-end products and stuff like that. And if you're not sure what to basically sell, just try to sit down and think, well, gee, if someone buys whatever you have now, what else might they be interested in? And sometimes it could be as easy as, if a person buys one product, offer to sell them 2 or 3 of the exact same thing at like a special deal. Or if like let's say you sell, I don't know, a report on how to lose weight. You could easily have an upsell where you include like maybe just a few one-on-one calls, with you as like a coach or anything like that, and you can charge way more. And sure, not everyone will buy, but the ones that do can add substantially more money to your bottom line. And another thing that you can do if you're completely clueless, not only can you kind of research what else sells in your market, you can do a search on Amazon, see what some of the best sellers are in your market. Amazon also does, if you click on any product, you oftentimes see towards like the very bottom, Amazon itself will suggest what products might go together, or it will also say people that viewed this or bought this also bought this and that. So you can get an idea of what they're basically looking for. For basically a digital product, again, you can just try to see what others are selling, try to basically mimic that. Or if you have a list, or even just a handful of like leads or buyers, you can just ask them what other service and stuff would they be interested in. In fact, I had a friend who owned an offline business, and he basically added a substantial amount of money to his bottom line just by adding additional services and upsells and stuff. And one of the things that he basically did is he sat down and said, well, these are the things that people keep asking us about, so why don't we just basically offer what they're looking to buy already? It sounds super easy, but a lot of businesses, again, don't take the time to do that. You also want to, again, at the same time, take advantage of your mailing list. So if you're not building a list now, you want to. And once you build a list, you want to make sure that you're emailing that list. The worst thing you could possibly do is build a list and never email it. The more you email it, the more often, the higher the chance you have to make more money off of that. And if you want like a super quick buck, you can always do like a special deal, like a three-day countdown where you have like a special price or like a limited time deal, and that can drive a lot of sales over a short period of time. Again, I've known guys that built huge lists that are probably worth hundreds of thousands to even millions of dollars, and they like never mail their list at all. In fact, there's one guy in particular that we got him to finally mail his list, and on the first mail-in made over like $100 grand or so, when previously did like nothing off that. And that's just off of like a single promo series right there. Now that's obviously on the extreme end, but it works again with almost any size list, even a really small one. And again, finally, last but not least, you can target new prospects more. And this is unfortunately what a lot of people think when they think, what do they have to do to get more sales? They all tend to think they need to get more buyers or more prospects. And yeah, obviously, the more sales that you make, the more you can make as a whole. But first and foremost, I look at what can you do to your current sales path or your current funnel to make more. And because that tends to be the easiest way right off the bat to basically make more end of market to your current list. And then after that, look into what can you do to get more sales. And again, we already covered a lot of that on how, again, you can find guys out there asking questions online. You can find leads out there that are looking to buy, all that stuff right there. Especially if you present them with an unbeatable offer, you can get new sales. But don't ignore the stuff that you can quickly and easily do. In your sales path or your funnel to basically get more off your current buyers. So with that, guys, those basically summed up the questions that we got. If there's other ones that you have, feel free to ask us now. And as a side note, we also have some free software and tools that you can use. If you go to bizfire.com/survey, there's a tool that basically asks a bunch of questions, and it gives you some specific, basically, suggestions at the very end of that. So you can use that for free. It gives you some really awesome tips and resources and stuff like that specific to your business. And at the very end of this survey, it also has a free sign up for another tool that helps make basically like kind of mind maps and funnels and lets you kind of map out a business model that you have and such like that. So make sure to check out that. And with that, guys, if you have any questions, you can feel free to ask those now, and then right after we'll do the cash giveaway. And with that, to get the $100 cash, all you have to do, you have to join this group for free. Just go to getwebfire.com/FB group. That will forward you to the Facebook group page. If you're not yet a member, just click join. Again, it's free and you'll get approved within like a minute. And then Sharon has a post up at the very top that asks what you guys thought of today's call. And if you leave any comment within that post, we'll pick a random winner in a few minutes here, and we'll actually PayPal them $100 cash on the spot. So make sure you post it within Sharon's post asking what you thought of today's call. Make sure it's the right post and date and all that from today. She posted about an hour or so ago, I'm sure. So just make sure to go there right now, and we'll pick a winner in a few minutes. And if you have like any ideas for like future topics that you want covered or anything like that, feel free to mention that. And with that, Sean, if there's any other questions that have popped up or anything like that, feel free to shout off those, and we'll try to answer those as well as we give guys a chance to leave those comments.
Yeah, these people have been typing comments like crazy. And I got most of them answered. Somebody just asked a really good question. Sean asked, he said he's been generating email leads off his blog or off his new landing page, and he wanted to know whether he should require confirmed opt-in, double opt-in as people call it. So in other words, 100 people come to your page, and when they opt in, you send them a message that says, hey, do you really want to be on my email list? If you really want to be on my email list, then you need to click here again to tell me that you really want to be on my email list, even though you just said you wanted to be on my email list. Now, if you were to ask the email service provider people, and they would tell you, oh my God, this is the best thing ever in the world that you could do. You're going to get like skyrocketing results if you do this. That's because they're not in the business of making money from sending email. They're in the business of making money when you pay them so you can send email. So, Sean's numbers were, of his first 67 people, 6 people clicked on the confirmed opt-in button. So what does that mean? That means 6 people were paying attention. That means 61 people will never get another email from him if they don't opt in. How many of you think it's smart to waste 90% of the people who join your email list? Anybody think that's smart? I'm going to guess you're all going to type no before I even look. Obviously not. Okay, and this is really important because that's essentially what you're doing. Now, The experts who make up these crazy things will tell you, yeah, but this way you're going to get less complaints when you send email. 100% not true. I spent tens of thousands of dollars on paid traffic testing all of this to find out, hey, if we put people on a list and we confirmed them and then we send them emails after they confirmed, the complaint rates, the reactions to emails, everything was literally identical whether they confirmed or not, but we wasted a huge percentage of our leads when we didn't just keep them on the list. So you can do what you want, but my advice if you want to make more money is don't double opt them in. Okay. So that was that answer there. Okay. Let's hang on. There was a question that was way back here, Brian, that we needed to answer that related to what you talked about. I just got to find the one I didn't answer. If I can find it. Whoop. Oh, okay. Here's a good question. In fact, I missed this way up here from Jay. So this is a good question. Do I use the same keywords on blogs for B2B as well as videos? Brian?
Well, I mean, it depends. I mean, in most cases, what you'll find is if there's an easy keyword phrase to rank for in Google, a lot of times it's just as easy to rank on YouTube. So if you're like, let's say you're trying to target like a question or phrase, you can target it both on a blog post as well as on a video. But a trick that you can also do on YouTube is you can do a search on YouTube for basically a keyword phrase that you want, and of the results on page one of YouTube, look and see how many of the results on page 1 contain somewhere in their title the exact phrase that you're trying to rank for. If it's like two or less, or three or less, you have a very good chance of also showing up on that page. If there's none, then you're almost guaranteed to be on page 1 right there. But if like every result contains the exact keyword phrase somewhere in the title, that might be a bit more competitive then. Then there's a bunch of other factors and stuff that come into play there. So comparable rules apply, and in both cases you want to make sure that basically the titles of your videos or the titles of your blog posts and stuff like that contain the phrase that you're trying to rank for.
All right, so yeah, the question I missed was this, somewhere around the bottom of the hour, you were talking, the question was, target questions with short answers, where do you put the answers? This person missed that.
So, okay, so if you do a blog post, okay, the title of your blog post can be the question. And within the content of the blog post, or the blog post itself, you can respond to it with the actual answer. So don't overthink that. It's actually very, very easy. A video is the same way. You can have basically the subject or the title be basically a question, and the first slide could even be the question, and then you could basically answer it within the rest of the video. So yeah, don't overthink that. It's actually very, very easy.
No, thankfully none of our members would ever overthink this stuff. Okay, so Christian has a good question. When I'm not sure if it's he or she, offered Breitling and Tag Heuer and Rolex watches for sale, had a lot of visitors but didn't make any sales of the watches, but made bunches of sales for watch winders and another watch and everything else, but none of the actual high-end watches. So what are they doing wrong?
All right.
Well,
so
first, I want to before you jump in, I want to mention something here. Okay. Forgetting what you're doing wrong for the moment, what you're doing right is you are getting people in, however on their site they're finding stuff to buy from you. So first of all, when you look at the 7 billion people on the planet, generally speaking, they don't always do what you want them to do. But if you do figure out what they do, then you could keep doing more of what you're doing that they're responding to and giving you money for. So first thing is, forgetting the part, and I'm going to have Brian talk about that in a minute, that didn't work. The part that did work is they showed up for whatever reason related to those high-end watches, and they bought watch winders and they bought other stuff from you, which is great. So you should try to figure out what you did that triggered them to do that and do more of that, especially if that traffic is free or very low cost, okay? So I know you'd rather sell the watch that makes you $1,000 or $2,000 a crack, but at the same time, don't ignore something that actually worked to make you money. There are times that we've created sales processes for things where we're like, oh man, this didn't work out the way we thought. But the screwed up process might make us, $500 or $1,000 a month. Well, when you were growing up, your mama never said, man, if you go screw something up, you can make $1,000 a month. At least my mom never told me that, right? So sometimes the things that we don't intend to have happen actually work out in one way or another. So when you look at the results, you go, wow, there's people who want to buy this stuff over here. Let me make sure I make that easy for them to buy while I'm still trying to sell the stuff I really want to sell, because you're making a profit on the sales that you're making for those things. So don't ignore that opportunity there. And Brian, I'll let you talk about the watch part.
Yeah, and without actually seeing your site, it's really hard to say. So like if you're trying to sell, let's say, a Rolex watch, and yet you see people aren't maybe buying that watch, but they're buying some other brands and some like watch winders and stuff like that, as Sean said, maybe you should trying to drive traffic immediately to what guys are basically buying right now, and that could by itself be a very awesome model. But on the same note too, maybe they're not buying the Rolex from you because they don't necessarily trust what they see on the site. If someone's basically buying like a $10,000 watch, you want to have faith and trust that the site is selling, the real watch and not basically the knockoff that you can get for $20. That vendors on the side of the road oftentimes sell. So one of the first things I'd say, make absolutely sure your site completely legit in every way. Has the testimonials, maybe has like a Facebook page, with comments and stuff. Whereas if they're basically buying like a watch wind-up tool, they don't need that trust in you because no one really cares if a wind-up watch then is or if like any watch accessory or tool you have is like a real brand or not. They buy it because it does what it basically does. So that's one thing that I'd be super careful with. Right there is make sure that you do appear as a legit site. You also want to make sure that if you're selling a certain model, that's one of the few times that like obviously you want to make sure that you're not priced way more than the competition because you're selling the exact same thing. So maybe do like a quick search to see what the price currently is online. That could be possibly why you're losing some sales there, but basically making the sales on the lower end stuff. But on that same note, I think it's an awesome job that you're actually making sales of something there, even if it wasn't what you were originally intending on, and maybe look into how you could possibly market to what is selling right now. So I'm not sure, Sean, if you have any other tips or anything, but before we go on to the next question.
No, I think that's good. And that is, other than that, I answered every other question.
Okay, cool. So with that,
and we're right on time to give away money at the top of the hour. We're good. Right. I just want to be the first to say that.
All right, let me just, right on time. It's perfect. I'll just switch screens here, refresh the page. All right. So here's the page. Just go to, again, getwebfire.com/FB group. It will forward you to here. Make sure to join, and then you can leave basically your comment under right here, where Sharon basically asked what you thought of today's call. So anything you want to say is fine. And any tips or anything that you want to see covered on next week is also fine to mention there too. I'll give you guys maybe another 10 seconds to leave a comment
only post
there.
once.
Yep, and just post once, guys. And try to make sure it's in here. I know there's a handful that post outside of that, which is fine. I'll count the ones outside, but try your best to post in there instead. Just makes it way easier. And I'll say 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. All right, I'll count the ones outside first because that's always easier. Okay, some people are posting in the wrong area. So that's, I'll count the ones outside. All right. Do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 8 plus 43, so 51. All right, 1 to 51, generate. 46. All right, so start at 51 and count backwards. All right, all right, 51, 50, 49, 48, 47, 46. So, Mike Alley.
So, Mike, if you look like this, go ahead, Brian. You're getting this a bad streak.
It used to be every time that I'd pick an actual winner, there's always like a photo of the guy on it. But for like the past, I don't know, month, it seems like no one has a photo of them from the winners. But anyway, that's fine. If your name is Mike Alley and you're from Philadelphia and you have 307 friends, congratulations. You have 307 friends and you're $100 richer. So just make sure, or you will be as soon as you mention your PayPal email to Sharon in the chat. So just post that up in the chat and she'll get that over to you in just a couple minutes. And again, thanks to everyone else that left, a comment and all that. Greatly appreciate that. And yeah, make sure to go to our next week's call. Again, every Wednesday at 2 p.m. Eastern Time, we'll have a new call. And yeah, we'll have some good stuff for you, so make sure to join us again next week as well, and we'll give you another chance to win $100 there as well. So with that, Sean, unless there's anything else you want to add in real quick, we can wrap up, and we'll see you next week.
All right, just want to thank everybody being here, being members, participating. Have a great week. We'll see you next week.
Take care, guys. See you later. Bye.